My mother sent the text with no warning. We're doing Thanksgiving with just the well-behaved kids this year. Yours can skip it. My daughter Eva saw my face and her own crumpled into tears. I sent a single, cold reply. Understood. I have canceled my card for the event. As I put my phone down. Their family group chat was already lighting up with selfies and celebratory toasts. Completely oblivious to the fact that the feast they were anticipating would never arrive. The text arrived while I was folding laundry. The mundane smell of clean cotton filling the air. It was a stark contrast to the digital cruelty that flashed on my screen. Next to me on the floor, my daughter Eva was carefully cutting paper leaves for her school's thankful tree. She held up a bright orange one, her voice full of innocent pride. I'm thankful for Grandma's cookies, she announced. Then her eyes found mine, and the light in them dimmed. She saw the text. Her first question was a quiet whisper. Did I do something wrong? The question was followed by stifled sobs. And then the deep, ragged breaths of pure hurt that a child takes when they realize for the first time that they are not loved unconditionally. In that moment, something inside me didn't break. It solidified. It wasn't hot, fleeting anger. It was a cold, permanent understanding that the illusion of my family had just shattered for good. I comforted Aoife, wrapping her in a blanket and letting her cry until her small body was exhausted. I tucked her into bed with her favorite movie and a bowl of ice cream. And then I went to my office. I didn't text them back with arguments or pleas. I logged into my bank accounts and systematically dismantled the entire event I was funding. I terminated the order for the 20-pound organic turkey. I purged the artisanal catering service that provided all the side dishes my mother bragged about. I canceled the delivery of imported wine and the floral centerpieces my mother always took credit for arranging herself. As I clicked confirm on each cancellation, their group chat buzzed with oblivious life. A selfie of my brother Ben and my father, grinning with beers in hand. A boomerang video of my mother clinking glasses with his wife. Followed by the vicious caption, a toast to family that behaves. I just kept my phone on silent and let them enjoy the illusion. This wasn't a sudden snap. It was the final, shuddering collapse of a structure I had spent my entire life trying to hold up. For years, I had explained away their behavior, making excuses for the casual cruelty they directed at my daughter. I told myself it was just their way, that they didn't mean it. That family was complicated. But looking back, the evidence was a trail of consistent, deliberate emotional neglect. There were Eva's forgotten birthdays, which always seemed to slip their minds until I sent a passive-aggressive reminder. There was the stark contrast between the expensive, elaborate gifts they bought for Ben's children, video game consoles, designer clothes, and the $10 gift card Eva consistently received in a plain, store-bought envelope. Most telling was their dehumanizing nickname for her, whispered when they thought I couldn't hear the little one, as if even her name was too much effort. For years, I had tolerated it, believing that keeping the peace was my duty as a daughter. But seeing Eva's tears, I had a horrifying realization. My tolerance was not peacekeeping, it was complicity. By accepting their behavior, I was teaching my daughter that this kind of conditional, transactional love was acceptable. I was teaching her that she had to earn a place at her own family's table, and I would rather burn the whole world down than let her learn that lesson. The Monday after the non-existent Thanksgiving was a coordinated siege. Multiple calls from Ben. Then my father. Then my mother. Each one ignored as I sat in a client meeting. That evening, a voicemail from my mother finally broke through. Her voice was tired and thin. A masterclass in passive aggression. Amelia. Honey, she began. We have a situation with the bank. We just need some temporary help with a small issue with the mortgage. I knew exactly what it was. 3 months prior, a letter had mistakenly come to my house, revealing they had co-signed a car loan for my brother Ben. The debt, all $24,000 of it, was for his new luxury car, and they had used their house as collateral. The bank's foreclosure notice was blunt. The debt was to be settled within 30 days, or they would lose the house. For a moment, The old, obedient part of me felt the familiar pull of obligation. It was the house I grew up in, the place where I learned to ride a bike and hide from monsters under the bed. So, against my better judgment, I gave them one final chance. I wired the full amount directly to the credit union. I didn't tell them. I let them sweat for a few more days until the bank officially withdrew the notice. Their follow-up call was full of saccharine gratitude. My mother, overjoyed, offered a peace treaty, a special shopping trip. Just for Eva. It wasn't an apology. It was a transactional reward for my compliance. And I was a fool to believe it was anything more. Eva was vibrating with excitement for the shopping trip. She insisted on wearing her sparkly boots. Even though they gave her blisters, she stood by the window for an hour. A small bag packed with her allowance money. Ready to go. My gut screamed at me to call it off. But I let her go. Hoping, praying I was wrong. 4 hours later, she returned. She walked straight to her room without a word and shut the door. My mother mumbled something about the mall being too crowded and left before I could ask a question. Later, I found Eva crying silently into her pillow. In her hand was a single, tiny keychain, shaped like a snowman, the only thing they had bought her. She finally told me what happened. They hadn't taken her shopping for herself, they had taken her along while they bought Christmas presents for Ben's kids. Eva watched them pick out toys and clothes and a gold bracelet. When she quietly asked if she could get a small doll, she overheard my mother tell my father, "We already spent too much on the real grandkids." That was the emotional dagger. A few weeks later, my father called, asking for a few thousand to clear up Ben's traffic violations. He joked that I should consider it an early inheritance. That was the final snap. I stopped thinking like a daughter and started thinking like the consultant they were treating me as. And I did what I do for my clients. I investigated. I ran a comprehensive background and financial check on my own parents. I pulled public records. It wasn't snooping, it was professional due diligence. And I found it. They didn't just have debt, they had a secret second mortgage on the house. It was leveraged to its breaking point. They weren't just cruel, they were financially catastrophic. And they had been grooming me to be their next line of credit all along. When my father called again to plead for the money, my response was delivered with absolute, cold finality. Not, "I'll think about it." Not, "Let's talk later." Just, "No." He was stunned into silence. Then sputtered, "We're family. Amelia, you don't turn your back on family." I asked him calmly, my voice perfectly level. "Does Eva count as family?" The silence on his end was deafening. It stretched for 5, 10, 15 seconds. He couldn't answer. He didn't answer. That silence was my answer. The next day, my mother sent her final, venomous text. "We always knew you'd punish us for not loving your mistake." There it was. The word they had thought, but never dared to say out loud. The word that explained every forgotten birthday, every cheap gift, every whispered insult. It wasn't an insult anymore. It was a confession. It was the emotional crime that voided every unspoken contract of our relationship. For the first time in my life, without hesitation, I blocked them. My mother, my father, my brother Ben, and his wife, every phone number, every social media profile. I surgically removed them from my life. This time it wasn't a break. It was a severance. The weeks that followed were a last, desperate siege on my new walls. A guilt-tripping voicemail from an aunt I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. A 3-word email from Ben, "We need help." A 5-page handwritten letter from my mother, filled with excuses dressed as apologies, blaming her behavior on stress, and saying she just needed more time to connect with Eva. I deleted them all without a second thought. Then, 3 weeks before the house was scheduled for auction, they appeared at my front door. I saw them through the peephole. My mother clutching a folder of documents. My father looking haggard and defeated. I didn't open the main door. I left the chain on and opened it just enough to see them through the locked screen. The screen door was a perfect metaphor. They were on the outside, looking in, unable to reach me or my daughter. Before they could launch into their prepared speeches, I delivered my verdict. My voice was calm and steady, like a CEO delivering a final quarter report. You were willing to let my daughter feel like garbage so you could keep playing happy family, I stated. I gave you every chance. I paid your debts. And you used every dollar I gave you to hurt the one person who has never done anything to you. There was no argument. They knew it was true. My mother's face crumpled. And, in a last, pathetic plea, she asked, "So she doesn't forget us." I looked her dead in the eye. "Oh," I said, my voice devoid of all emotion. "You made sure she'll never forget you." Then I closed the main door. The click of the deadbolt was the final sound. The house sold 19 days later. They moved in with Ben. He was always their favorite. Now he could be their lifeline. Eva and I never spoke of them again. Our life became defined by a new kind of quiet, an earned peace built on small, joyful rituals. We made spaghetti on Tuesdays. We put extra whipped cream on store-bought brownies. We stayed up too late on school nights, watching old movies, wrapped in a single blanket on the couch. This was our new foundation. Solid and real. Built on mutual respect and unconditional love. I am teaching my daughter a lesson. I had to learn the hard way. We don't let people keep a place in our lives just because we share DNA. Love is something that is proven, not something that is owed. For the first time, I didn't just close the door on the pain of my past. I locked it. And I threw away the key. True peace isn't about forgiveness. Sometimes, it's about choosing who gets to have access to your heart. Have you ever had to make a choice like this? Share your story in the comments.